I don't know. I've been thinking for a while about. Oh, somebody's driving up. I'm thinking for a while about making videos based on this book. I don't know if you can see it. True Ozark Tales from Bygone Days. This is just a spiral bound one. Someone contacted my grandfather, my mother's father, about acquiring all of these. Oh, well, I'll read you the front and the little forward, and maybe you'll understand better. But basically, this is an ancestor of mine. He used to write for a newspaper long, long ago. And this is called Tales Written About Settlers in Southern Missouri Before, During, and After the Civil War. And this is by John J. Chilton, who was, I believe, my great-great-grandfather. And he lived from 1858 to 1938. And a man from the university wanted to put this all together. And I wonder why I have this reflective thing going on here. Who knows? That's weird. Anyway, he wanted to put this together as one whole book, all of these old articles. My grandfather, who gave one of these to each of his grandchildren, and he put his passport picture from years gone by. He says, "Dear Alyssa," this is written on July 2007, "this book is presented to you by your grandpa Maurice Hugh Chilton." And I almost didn't say it, but I already told you the man's name that wrote it. So, Maurice Hugh Chilton, in memory of his grandpa, John J. Chilton. So it's my great-grandfather. No, my great-great. Yeah, my great-great-grandfather. Grandpa John J. died in 1938 at the age of 80 years. He lived his entire life in and around the town of Van Buren, Missouri. The stories he wrote certainly gave us a better understanding of how folks lived back then. Some of the articles are pretty gruesome. Please save the book for future generations in your family. Much love, Maurice. Well, I can't have kids, so there's not going to be any passing this along to future generations for me, but I can certainly enjoy it while I'm alive. And here's a picture of the family. There's John J. himself, kids, and his wife. Now, I wish I could remember right off the bat, but there's always been little whispery, gossipy tales about the woman. She's rather plump. She looks about my size, and her name was what? Her name was Christina. Christina. We don't know if they meant to name her Christina, but because they're from Missouri and talked all retarded, they ended up naming her Christina. I forget how that went. But she was a bit of a wild one. She would jump up and leave the family. Let's see here. She had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kids. And she'd go off on a toot and go running around with other men and go live with other men and go be wild. And then she'd come back and be mama again. And wildness going on there. Christina and her plump little escapades. John J. Chilton was born in 1958 and passed away in 1938. Is that what it says on the front? Yeah, okay. He was a young boy during the Civil War. He witnessed many events related to the Civil War and heard many stories of events that took place in southern Missouri during that time. In 1931 to 1933 and part of 1934, he wrote columns for a newspaper in Van Buren, Missouri, called The Current Local, about the Civil War and events that took place before and after the war. He titled these stories True Ozark Tales from Bygone Days. I, Joseph E. Johnson, being the 5th generation great-great-grandson, saw the value in making sure these tales were preserved and not lost or discarded. I felt putting these in a book format would help accomplish that goal. These tales are fascinating to read and contain accounts of Civil War and other events in Missouri that probably are not found in history books, and John J. Chilton gives a vivid personal account of what life was like in rivers, farms, and towns, and is specific in the locations of events. If you're from southern Missouri, you may find the names mentioned in these articles familiar, and it goes on a bit. Let's see. When I studied the Chilton family tree, I was impressed to learn that the Chiltons went back to England in 1066 during the reign of William the Conqueror and have an interesting coat of arms. Therefore, I have included a brief history of the Chilton family, and blah, blah. Most of you aren't going to be interested in that. We have a classy coat of arms, it seems. It's got... it looks like a griffin and neat stuff on it. I'll read you one of these stories, and if anybody likes them and is interested, man, we had a Shadrach. We also had a Zimri. That's some cool names. But if you find these interesting at all, I'll make future ones. I'll just, I guess, read the first newspaper account here. This was from 9/17/1931. First visits of soldiers to country not welcome. Early in April 1862, Captain McCameron, with a company of 60 soldiers, entered the north part of Carter County, and leaving the state road at farm, John Chilton's children were planting corn near the river at what was then known as the Count Road Ford. The children were Shade Chilton, 15 years old, and 5 others ranging in age down to 9 years old. The writer, only 4 years old at the time, was there. The people of the community were expecting the soldiers, and when they rode into the river, Shade Chilton started to warn Isaac Baker, Sam Burnham, Sam Hanger, and Batty Chitwood, who were working on the next farm up the river. He ran about 60 rods through plowed ground while they rode out of the river and up the fence. The writer can yet see how their blue uniforms and weapons flashed in the sun, and their fine horses glistened as they ran through the field. The boy had never been chased before, so he thought the soldiers much closer upon him than they actually were. So he crawled under a log, where one of the pursuers discovered him. Bringing him out from his hiding place, they forced him to guide them to a farm for which he was headed when caught. They arrived at the farm just after the noon hour, and Mr. Burnham had started plowing. Mr. Baker was cutting corn stalks and cleaning up the land. He discovered the soldiers in time to slip behind a large tree. Mr. Burnham's coat was on the opposite side of the tree, and a soldier came and got the coat. And then, when they had gone up to Mr. Baker's house, he slipped away unnoticed. And going up a hill, he watched the soldiers until they turned back. Sam Hanger and Batty Chitwood, working in another part of the field, discovered the raiders in time to slip away. The Federals returned to the home and released Shade Chilton and asked my mother numerous questions, but got little true information. From there they went down to the river, to the next farm known as Wood's Mill at that time, and camped. After night, some of them were saddling up to ride around some that night, when one of the men thus engaged discovered a man nearby and asked, "Who comes here?" The man replied with a shot, which took effect in the soldier's wrist, causing his death 4 days later at Greenville. Believing they were being attacked by an enemy in the dark, the soldiers stampeded and fled about half a mile down the river to what is now the Brookhow Farm, where they formed a line of battle and remained in line until near daybreak, when Captain Owen Hawkins and Captain Ponder, with a band of rebels, located them and sent them scurrying back to Greenville. The local citizens who first fired on the band left the scene in an opposite direction from their home, rode a mile or so, and left the road one at a time so that the enemy could not track them, and meet again in the woods, and returned home in time to get some sleep before daylight. John J. Chilton. So, yeah, if you find like it might be interesting at all, next one is called Raiders Killed Rooster But Forgot the Meat. If you think that would be interesting to you, I'll read some more. Surely somebody will find it interesting. There's lots of Civil War buffs out there. I guess that's all from me. If the swinging while I'm reading distracts you, let me know. I'll try to be still. But it's hard to when I'm out here on my swing. Anyhow, that's about it. Hope everybody's doing well this evening.